president of the Historical Society here in Lee County. And today we are welcoming Shane Etter, who is our local baseball knowledge extraordinaire. Aficionado, exactly. Shane has a incredible collection. If you haven't had a chance to look at some of the things he has, we'll have them on display for a little bit after the program. So without further ado, Shane Etter. Thank you guys for coming.
Like I had mentioned earlier to a few of you, I'm gonna just, I wrote a article several years ago that was published. I've done several on baseball, but this is kind of a generic outline of Keokuk and its history. And then I've got some bullet points on here I'll run through. And then I usually like to kind of open it up for questions, because I can go several different directions with this. I don't want to bore anybody with statistics or anything. So I'll go ahead and, like I said, I wrote this several years ago when it was published. Organized baseball in Keokuk. Keokuk started its entry into professional baseball in 1875 as a member of the National Association, predecessor of the now present National League. Keokuk has been a member of the National, the Western League, the Iowa State League, the original Central Association, the Mississippi Valley League, the Western League, the 3-I League, and finally the Midwest League. Few, if any, cities in the United States has been affiliated with as many organized leagues. Keokuk was in a much higher class of play during 1875 when it tried to keep up with the likes of New York, Chicago, St. Louis, Philadelphia, and other cities in the old National Association, and played only 13 games that year before bowing out of the picture with a 1-12 record. It was a different story 10 years later, when in 1885 Keokuk became a member of the Western League and was so strong that it broke up a league comprising such cities as Milwaukee, Indianapolis, Kansas City, and others of comparable size. Over the next 19 years, Keokuk was content in playing a fast brand of semi-pro ball, but in 1904 returned to the professional ranks as a member of the Iowa State League. This circuit continued to operate under that name until 1907, when Quincy and Jacksonville replaced Fort Dodge and Clinton, and the league became known as the Central Association. Keokuk remained in the league for 9 years and attained its highest rank in 1915 when it placed second under the management of Frank Boyle. Then came another layoff until 1929 when the city took over the Marshalltown franchise in the Mississippi Valley League, and in 1931 won the town's first championship. Keokuk remained in the Valley League until the league broke up after the 33 season, remained out of professional baseball for 1 year, and then returned in 35 in the Western League. Following World War II, a number of Keokuk men helped reorganize the Central Association, which opened its first season in May of 47 under the presidency of Frank Hearn. Keokuk became affiliated with Pittsburgh under an outright ownership agreement and lasted until 1949. In 52, Keokuk obtained an independent franchise in the Class B3 League, and for 2 years was managed by Rudy Lakowski. 1954 saw the Colonels with their third major league affiliation in baseball history, working with Cleveland and a big push for a first place team. After setting the pace for most of the season, manager JoJo White's Colonels finished in second place after a late season losing streak. No one could have imagined the caliber of team that opened the Keokuk's 55 season. Merle Pinky May, an experienced manager, had a roster of young, inexperienced players. The young Colonels got off to an excellent start, with everyone anticipating that the winningest team in all baseball history would eventually cool off, but they didn't, and they started to pick up momentum as the season progressed. Their record of 92 wins in a 126-game season is a minor league record, and in 2001 were named the 30th best minor league team of all time. The 55 Colonels captured the 3-I League pennant and won the playoffs decisively, propelling 7 of the players to major league status. Keokuk stayed in the 3-I League until 58, when Keokuk jumped into the Midwest League. Keokuk was affiliated with the St. Louis Cardinals, and then in 62 with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Los Angeles pulled out at the end of the season, bringing organized ball to an end in Keokuk, Iowa. At this point, Keokuk still had American Legion Baseball going strong, as well as the Southeastern Community College team. Later on, both of these organizations would eventually fade out, leaving only high school baseball. Off and on for the years, the amateur and professional side of its baseball had its place in the community. In the period after World War II, the sandlot pastime started to die out. Between the First and the Second World Wars, there were such teams as the Midgets, Bulldogs, All-Stars, Goats, Indians, West Keokuks, Cherry Blossoms, and the Black All-Star teams. Over the years, Keokuk had the opportunity to play some of the traveling barnstorming teams. Oliver Bodden, a local gent who once played semi-pro ball, later became coach and promoter at the same time. He had scheduled some games between the 37-38 Keokuk Indians and the Kansas City Monarchs, Shreveport Giants, and the Indianapolis Clowns, which was all African-American barnstorming teams back then. Other barnstorming teams Keokuk played against were the St. Louis Deals, the Negro American Giants, some Chicago semi-pro teams, House of Davids, Chicago Pirates, and Dizzy Dean's traveling barnstorming team, to name a few. Keokuk also played a varied assortment of bloomer girl teams. When the men's team would meet and often defeat the paint and powder puff visitors, they were suspicious that the occasion was more for the leg show than for any sport that might be attached to it. Besides playing against all black barnstorming team, Keokuk had the privilege of having 6 former Negro League players playing for one of the local Keokuk ball clubs. They were Pedro Ballester, 52 Colonels, Valeno Canizares, 52 Colonels, George Handy, 52 Colonels, Nat Peoples, 53 Colonels, Art Superman Pennington, 52 and 53 Colonels, and John W. Bud Fowler, 1885 Keokuk Hawkeyes, who was the first African American to play professional baseball before the color lines were drawn. With baseball being played for well over 100 years in Keokuk, it has hosted several fine players on their way up to the big leagues. At this point, I've came up with some 60 plus names, but to just name a few, I have some highlights which some people will recognize. Gus Bell, Roger Maris, Jim McKeck Grant, Bobby Locke, Russ Nixon, Gordy Coleman, Tim Carver, Bill Madlock, Paul and Rick Ruschel. Keokuk was also lucky enough to have some hometown boys be very successful in their majors. They were Jerry Harrington, Joe Lutz, and Jack Saltzgaber. Between the 30s and 60s, several Keokuk local boys either signed or had tryouts with a major league team, but due to an early injury or the military draft, things soon changed. No one can satisfactorily explain why Keokuk, a relatively obscure town with a population ranging from 11,000, was invited or permitted to play with such elite company as were the teams from New York, Boston, Philadelphia, and other metropolitan centers. During periods when it was making time, as it were, from membership in one professional league to another, Keokuk had been the home of many outstanding semi-pro and amateur teams, which maintained the city's reputation as a baseball hotbed. So that was the article I had published several years ago. I was looking through some other notes. I did a reunion back in 2004, and I found some information there. We had 378 players who played for Keokuk just during the years 47 to 62, which was the hotbed of organized baseball in Keokuk, and a total of 32 made the majors, and then I've got them listed. I did try and put out ball cards of most all the ball players that played professional baseball for Keokuk in my display here. A few points here. I don't know, but we had Bud Fowler was inducted into the Hall of Fame last year, and he played here in 1885. And I have some stuff over here. I have a ball card, a book, his Hall of Fame plaque I got from Cooperstown a while back when he was inducted last year. With growing political power in Midwestern cities, even Keokuk argued for relocating the nation's capital to their cities. Thus, a baseball team competing at the highest professional level nationally could be utilized to boost Keokuk's chances if the capital were to be moved. There was a lot of towns back then that were trying to be the first or move different towns or their capital to different cities in the state. That was 1875 when we played. I know that's the only venue right now in the state of Iowa that hosted a major league team of any sport. I think Waterloo, I'll have to check into it, but I think they had a major league basketball team one year. I think Waterloo did. Let's see. I talked about Jack Saltzgaber, hometown hero. Played for the Keokuk Cherry Blossoms, then he went and played with the Yankees from 34 to 38. I have a photo here in the front. Jack Saltzgaber from Keokuk's in there, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig's in it. He was also the highest paid utility player in all of baseball at one time. He played with the guys. Tony Lazzari was the position he was going to take. He was the only one that played first base for Lou Gehrig. They would not release him because they didn't want to play against him, so they held on to him for all the years. I know he built his house at 1002 Seymour with his World Series money. That's still here in town today. Looks like a little castle if you drive by it.
What'd you say the address was, Shane?
1002 Seymour, right on the corner.
Okay.
Then I have a trophy here a little while. You guys can walk around. I received this trophy a few years ago from Jim Dennis. Roy, his dad, played on it. I remember doing some research. It's the Keokuk Legion team at 31-32. They were the youngest team in the state of Iowa to win and go to, supposed to represent Salina, Kansas. It ended up going to court. We had 3 guys from Missouri, but we were within the guidelines, the regulations, the bylaws. But by the time Hughes Camps and they lawyered up, the team was already represented by the town. Went to Salinas, got beat pretty bad. But they won the hardware back in Keokuk, and its citizens said no way. But come to find out, several of the teams that we beat along the way, they had representatives on the board that went against the Keokuk team and wouldn't allow us to go. So we should have been able to go, but we had 3 guys from Missouri. Within the bylaws, we were within the mile radius, and that's in the state, you can go out of the state, but then that came into a factor in court, so. I also have a couple jerseys, photograph of the 31 Keokuk Indians I mentioned was the first championship team. On the website for this presentation, there was a photo of a night game. The St. Louis Cardinals came down the week before they won the World Series, and we won the championship that year in 31. So both the parent team and us won the championship in 31. We were supposed to be the first one to have lights in the state of Iowa, and I think Des Moines beat us out by a couple days. And that was another big thing with St. Louis's help. Morning Martin, he was the Keokuk Indians mascot for that 31 team, and then he also was the bat boy for the St. Louis Cardinals for a number of years in St. Louis. So he actually signed a major league contract, toured with the ball team, got to meet all the major league ball players that came through. So he was with the Gas House gang for a number of years. I'd also mention several of the former Never League players playing in 52-53. We were in the pen that year, those 2 years. Had no major league affiliate. But we had some characters that came through those 2 years. And they also promoted within. So we had Jack Jones from Keokuk played, Bob Ratz Williams played, Leo Azinger played, or Leo Teig and Tom Azinger. So we had 4 or 5 ball players from Keokuk that got to play with the Colonels those 2 years at some point. We had a lot of former major league ball players. They would get hurt, go in for rehab. They came through those 2 years in 52-53. We had a guy, Charlie Cuellar, that played for the White Sox, and a few other guys. So 52, 53 was like kind of like a revolving door of ball players that come through those 2 years. 55, I mentioned, became, a few years ago, they did a study, and Keokuk Colonels was the 30th all-time team ever. I have a team picture. There were 7 guys that went to the major leagues. When I did my reunion several years ago, I actually had one of the ball players from that team come back. Mudcat Grant was not able to make it back, but I got to meet Mudcat in St. Louis a couple of times. I talked with all the guys on the phone, and I actually met probably all the guys but 2 or 3 off the team at one time. You got a question?
Yeah, was this Twins, Mike Cat Grant?
Yes, it was. Yep, he went on and played for Minnesota Twins in a couple World Series. I think in '65 he played. He played for the Cardinals. I think he played for about eight different teams through his major league career. I know the Dodgers, the Twins, A's, Cardinals.
Indians.
But that team there was just, it was phenomenal. Harley West was the business manager. Doc Lockett was the trainer. Gary Bryce was the bat boy. I got to meet with Bob Breakville was a bat boy for the independent team. Bob Laubensheimer was a bat boy. Ray Ricker was a bat boy for the Colonels. 59, we had McCarver come in. Tim actually graduated from high school, came late, left early, and played 9 games for the St. Louis Cardinals all in one summer. So high school, semi-pro, and major leagues one summer. So, with that being said, I do have his ball glove, catcher's mitt when he was here. Ron Day, who was a teammate of his, was a scout for 40 years in the Midwest for the Redskins in football. He had his ball glove and sent that to me, documented it, and then I picked up his baseball bat, gave me his bat from here in town from one of the kids that had gotten it from me. You can see where it broke and they put the nails in it, and so I've got that bat as well. Bob Pearl was a local. He signed, him and Bob Gibson went into the Cardinal organization at the same time. And Bob played with the Keokuk Cardinals in '59, and then he went south, and he never made it any farther than that. Pearl Field in Coralville, the softball field is named after Bob. Byron Claprot's another one that played. He went from Class D, which is the Cardinal affiliation in Keokuk, from '58 to '61, and then he went to Winnipeg, Canada, which was Class B, I believe. So he did get to Class B before he didn't go any farther. Then after I mentioned we lost organized ball, we had Legion baseball. We had Rick and Paul Ruschel, boys from over around Sutter.
Rouge Camp Point.
Yeah, Camp
Rouge
Point.
Tabasco.
Yeah, Camp Point. And Rick and Paul played for 1 year together here. One of them come early and one stayed, but they both played 1 year in Keokuk together.
I also played with the Chicago Cubs when they got to
Yes.
the majors.
And a lot of things that they acquired or did together as brothers in the major leagues, Jerry Hughescamp documented that. He was our coach here. They did the same thing in Keokuk for the Legion team before they did it in the major leagues together as brothers. And then the last thing I've got is Bill Madlock played for SEC baseball in '69, '70. They actually went to get him for basketball scholarship, and he didn't have any more basketball scholarships here. So he played baseball, and then he became a 5-time batting champion in the major leagues. So he had a lot of Keokuk ties. I do know Bill worked in the community. He was good friends with Byron and Pat Claprot. And a few years back when he came through the Midwest League with Michigan, I got to go up there and sit down with him and talk, and the Claprots and him got to go out and eat that night. So there is a lot of ties with the community and the boarding houses that we had here in town. A lot of them stayed at Maida Harrington's, ball players, a lot of them stayed at, I can't think of the house behind Maida's house, now Holland, where Steve Swan lives. Back then, I don't know when it changed, if it did, the black African-American ball players had to stay with host families here in town. And I do know, Melcat Grant and several of them talked about the families that they stayed with. So it was still, pretty well discriminatory, you know, a lot of things were going on at that time with the ball players. That was one of the things too I've tried to do through the years with my research is kind of follow or go in the steps of the ball players, where they stayed, where they went to eat, their transportation, the cost of living, what they were paid. There were certain restaurants, a lot of the guys would fish, a lot of the guys would go and listen to records in the record store. We had a sporting goods store here in town. I do know if you got sunburned as a ball player, the ball teams would fine you. So you better not get sunburned if you're out in the sun. So, but anyway, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions, because like I said, I go all kinds of different directions with my research. So if there's any questions on the players, anything, feel free to look around. So, go ahead.
Was it a financial success for the ball teams here, let's say in the 50s till they closed?
In the 3A league, they were pretty successful, financially. In the Midwest League, just kind of like what's happened with Burlington over the years, Major League Baseball closed down. They took Clinton, Iowa down, and they took Burlington down. Clinton was probably the oldest. I think they were one of the original ones in the Midwest League that started years ago. But they just couldn't draw the crowds in to get the gate seat.
With the expansion of the major leagues, like with the Mets and stuff, is that why we folded out here in '62 then?
I think so, because the Dodgers didn't want to do any more money. They were all cut. '62 was a bad year for minor league ball, because there were several teams, just not Keokuk or towns, that lost their minor leagues. That was kind of the start of the fall of the minor league system in '62. So,
Thank you.
So that first year in the National Association,
1875.
when we went 1-12, what was the team that we beat?
I'll have to get back to you on that. But we were close on several. I did write something down on that.
Might as well know that.
I did write something down on that here. Yeah.
Hopefully it was the Cubs.
Six of the losses were by 2 runs or less. So it's not like they come in here and stomp us. With that being said, with the 1-12, the population and the gate receipts is what really hurt us. I've got a lot of the paper clippings, reading the accounts. The forecast was not good. The weather was never good during the 12 or 13 games. And so they couldn't pay the receipts, basically. And I think there was even a team that didn't show up because they didn't think they would even get paid if they came into Keokuk. So, yeah. So I don't know what, well, no, we won that game, but we'll have to look at that. And I should have, but, yeah. And that's another thing I'm wanting to do too, is the ball field at that time, where the middle school is on Orleans, where the church is, that's where the Major League Ballpark would have been located at, was in that vicinity right there where the church sits. And I have talked with the courthouse. I've got a couple guys up in Des Moines at the Iowa State Historical Society that I've been working with for years. I've got some more documentation to do, but I have talked with the church, and we'll have a plaque put there and have it documented at some point if I ever get back to getting it finalized. But
Is Fowler Park named after Fowler the player?
no, and that would have been. That's another thing too. I'm wanting to do is all the ball fields. I've got everything documented pretty good. The names, the locations. I've got it on the blueprint in the city directory. Perry Park and Hubinger Park. Hubinger Park was big up until about 1913. Then we went to the Standard 4. originally across the street from the old Joyce Park, and then we acquired where Joyce Park was for years up until we got the new ballpark. But we had a lot of different ballparks around Keokuk. I know the midgets played right off of Grand Avenue between Grand and Seymour is where a local Sandlot team played.
You said Fowler. He was the first black person in baseball, right?
In 1875,
But now they say Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier.
yeah, he broke that in 47, and I think this was,
Yeah.
it was long before the gentleman's agreement came up to where they frowned upon the blacks playing in a white ball game back then. When he came here in 1875, doing the research, there was a lot more to it. You know, they tried to say that they didn't know he was African American. But we had a good population of all nationalities and race back then, and we had neighborhoods, and they were being a smart business person. They were going for the money, and that's what I think they did, is they went out and got somebody that would bring others to the ballpark.
Well, that's probably
So,
what Branch Rickey did with Jackie then.
in 1947. Yep.
You probably know this, but it was about 10 years later after Bud Fowler, it was Cap Anson who at the time was maybe the best player in baseball. He said he refused to play in any game where there was a black player.
Yeah.
And that pretty much, within months after that, those
It
people
was
all
a
left.
gentleman's agreement, and
And
then,
that became a gentleman's agreement, and that was the end of it. That was in the 80s, and then that hung on.
yep. And then in 1947, basically, when Branch Rickey gave Jackie Robinson, it was Pee Wee Reese that kind of broke the ice there. He went out and put his arm around Jackie, and it was fine then. All the ball players seen the interaction.
Yeah, it was in Cincinnati, I believe.
Yeah.
Was the Cedar Rapids Colonels named after us?
What's that?
The Cedar Rapids Colonels, before we have twins?
Yeah, I don't know. We tried asking them that years ago, you know, or the conversation, but they just took up the Colonel name. The Colonels here in town, they had a essay contest, and it was Bonnie Flug Law. She wrote that, but it was because of Hoovingers with the Colonel down there. But that was in a paper, and at that time, we had 52-53, Harry Carey was in town, and there was Gus Mancuso. I know she got a lifetime membership for writing the essay, but we had a lot of dignitaries in those 2 years. Still no major league affiliate, but we had a lot of dignitaries in 52-53, and then 54 Cleveland came in, and that was when we started with the affiliation with them. But prior to that, 47 through 49, we had the Pirates in here, Pittsburgh. So
Did you say Tim McCarver played for Keokuk?
in 1959, yep.
I was there the night that apparently he got the call, and they got on the PA system and said, we just got off the phone, and tomorrow Tim McCarver will be starting for St. Louis.
Yep.
And he left the game,
They, you know, and looking at the newspaper accounts, they butchered names like crazy. I think the first time I seen it was like Tom McGreevy or something. They never did get Tim McCarver, but he was a $50,000 bonus baby. We had a lot of bonus babies come through Keokuk from the St. Louis Cardinals. Joff Long was a $70,000 bonus baby. McCarver was 50, and then there were several others that I've seen. Lou Schmacky used to do all their contracts. I've got a few contracts with the ball players from the Cardinal organization here in town. I know one of the stories I was telling somebody earlier, Cliff Polite played for the Cardinals in '59. His son's name is Cliff Polite. They both started out in the Cardinal organization. And Cliff actually the son played for the White Sox a few years ago when they won the World Series. That was around the time I think we were doing the reunion here in town. I tried to get Cliff to come. And Cliff's boy was being interviewed by Tim McCarver. So Cliff's dad played with McCarver here in town, and then they interviewed one another and talked about Keokuk and coming back for the reunion. So I got a signed photo from Cliff playing for the World Series White Sox, but it's pretty amazing all the connections with the ball players and the families.
Was there a time that they played between Hamilton and Warsaw?
Yeah, there was, baseball on Sundays was outlawed in Iowa, so they would take the ferry over to, Crystal Glen and play ball over there, and I've got some photos of some of the ball. They would do a makeshift ball field. They put up their own tent in their bleachers, and they would walk in their Sunday clothes and hats and all that, and I've been trying to pinpoint, because Crystal Glen goes above the dam, they're below the dam at certain areas. I'm not for sure exactly where they played over there in Illinois. But I've got some original negatives of all the ball being played over in Illinois. They outlawed it. They'd play out at Hubinger Park. The ball field at that time was Rampart Terrace, where the fountain is across the street. No, your home plate would be west, and center field would be going down towards the river. And it was about 4 block radius off of Grand Avenue where the ball field was. And then on Sundays they couldn't play ball, so they'd take the ferry across and play on Sundays. So, anybody else got any questions? Go ahead.
I have a question for the, where the players played at, the original stadium. Who puts a church on the field?
The church?
Yeah.
Over here?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that ball field's been gone it was a pasture for years. So, and I actually think at one time they had the fairgrounds. That was kind of an extension of fairgrounds, and there was a lot of activity that went on in that area down towards the river. And then through the years with being developed and sold off, that's when the church was built. So. But I've got all kinds of photos and uniforms and ball cards. I didn't bring any scorecards or baseballs a lot. I try and mix it up every once in a while. I thought this would be a light load, and it was a little bit heavier than I thought. I've got about 12 albums full of stuff and 3 display cases at home full of stuff. So.
Did Ozzie Smith ever play here?
No, he played in Clarinda, Iowa, though.
Oh.
He played in Iowa, minor league ball.
Well, Bob Gibson.
I don't know about Bob.
Or was he Omaha? I know he played in Omaha.
He might, yeah.
He was from Omaha.
But yeah,
He
Ozzie
played
played
for
in
Creighton.
Yeah, he lived in Omaha, I know.
Yeah, there's a lot of ball players that come through the Midwest League or periodically. I mean, Iowa had Waterloo, Hawks, and Clinton, and Davenport, and Cedar Rapids, and Keokuk, and Burlington. I mean, there's a lot of minor league teams through the years Keokuk had. And then the Cedar Rapids Demons, which was a Cardinal farm team that was a little bit higher up than what we were in the 30s. We were 31 Cardinals in I think we were Class C. They were Class B up in the Des Moines area.
Yeah, one year, you were talking about fishing. One year, me and my boy, we went to Iowa Cubs game, and all the players after the game went fishing after the game was over. Did Keokuk players do that?
They fished quite a bit on the Mississippi. Like I said, there was times a couple of the guys got sunburned and they got a fine from the team for that. So
Well, that's,
maybe he wasn't ready to play ball. If he got sore and couldn't play or pitch, he was a commodity, being paid.
What year did Branch Rickey start the farm system?
Would that have been the late 20s? Because I think he was.
He's the one who started it.
Yeah, he started the farm system really good. Branch Rickey did. I'm not for sure. It had to be late 20s probably. So, well, free to come up and look around.
Come in from the other door. Before everybody packs up and comes up and looks at the marvelous things that Shane has, I want to invite you to our May program, which will be history, photographs. One of our members has done some colorizations on a lot of them, has done some comparisons on then and now, so you can kind of get a feel for how the community would have looked back then. So keep an eye out for dates and times. We'll have those available in the newspaper. We will also have June and July programs, and we're looking at having open hours for the Miller House itself. Also want to remind you about the Oakland Cemetery Initiative, where we are working on raising money to put historical signs out at the cemetery. We'll have a 5K, so if you are or know any joggers, runners, walkers, strollers, we'll have that event coming up soon also. That'll be July 1st. And then July 1st through 4th will be the 175th anniversary celebration of the naming of Keokuk. So we'll have a citywide, a bunch of events and history and all kinds of great things going on that weekend. So lots of great things coming up for Keokuk, lots of wonderful things coming up for local history. Before you go, we've got some snacks over in the dining room. Of course, Cracker Jacks, can't have, baseball without Cracker Jacks. We've got some great homemade cookies, and, we invite you to take a couple of things with you and enjoy the goodies. So feel free to come on up, and thank you so much to Shane for sharing everything that you know about baseball. I know this is like this tiny little bit much of how much you know. So thank you all again for coming. Travel safe getting home, and stay dry today. Thanks.